All right. Hello. Good day, everybody. Natalie here. And I've got a special guest with me today, Morgan Ruff. And we're going to have a great conversation about self-compassion and probably a few other things tossed in there because that's just how we roll when we're having conversation. So Morgan works with wild women and wild souls who somehow get lost in the woods. She guides them back to their intuition so that they can trust themselves and stand more clearly in their own center. She does this by exploring the wild nature of our feelings, our thoughts, and our beliefs, and how these inform our life actions. By digging into themselves, women find the freedom to live a life more authentically aligned with their wildest nature and truest dreams. Morgan's a mama of 2 wild girls and lives in Mount Vernon, Washington, where she spends her days working for a tribal community, facilitating endangered species, recovering for Pacific Northwest salmon and killer whales. Through her life, she's been a kayak guide in Alaska, a boat captain, a naturalist, an elite level cyclist, and has climbed the summit of some of the most notable peaks in her area. Currently, she is navigating parenting, work, and a coaching business, and all of which are guided by her desire to be a wild woman. So welcome, Morgan. My first question for you, and I think it's a great launch pad for our conversation, is what is self-compassion? Can you define that for us?
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for having me here. And it's always fun to hear people read your bio. I'm like, oh yeah, that is me. Self-compassion is one of the pillars of what I have found to be so critically important to helping me grow and thrive as a human being. So for me, self-compassion is really the antidote to perfection. So I am somebody who has, for all my life, really struggled with this need to be perfect, this need to achieve, this need to go, to thrive, to blah, just be all the things to all the people. And that really came from a place of like, just not trusting myself or deep fear of getting something wrong. So really self-compassion to me is about learning how to embrace yourself with all your imperfections and giving yourself that resilience that you need to thrive. So another way that the self-compassion community talks about this is learning to live with the ouch of life. Like life is going to deliver ouches and it's going to deliver joys. And so how can we learn to kind of hold both components of life, the ouch and the joy, and not over-identify with one or another, but really become to be our own inner ally that's saying to myself, oh, this is owie, this hurts. What do I need right now? So to me, when I talk about self-compassion, a lot of my training and a lot of the work that I've done, I'm not a mindful self-compassion certified leader yet, but I hope to be in the future. A lot of the work that I have done really comes out of the research done by Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer in the mindful self-compassion world. And their work has been well researched. And it's sort of based on a similar foundation of MBSR, mindful-based stress reduction, or those other kind of formal mindfulness programs. And I've just really found it a great entry point to learning about this and, more importantly, practicing it for myself.
That's beautiful. So how would a woman know she's lost in the woods, as you say, that she's lost in the woods and she probably has no real frame of reference of like what even self-compassion is? Like, how do we know? And then what would be a starting place for that once they have the aha moment?
Yeah. So what I have found with myself, when I struggle, when I feel inadequate, when I'm failing, I would often like want to push it away, go away, scream like, no, I can't, I don't want to see that. I don't want to deal with that. And it goes from, I don't like this feeling to, I don't want this feeling to, I shouldn't have this feeling to, something is wrong with me for having this feeling to, I'm bad. So I call this shame spiral. So you feel a feeling and you're like, I don't like that. Ugh. And then your mind starts working its way until you have like created this whole identification within yourself for being bad and kind of living in shame. So a lot of us don't even know that this is happening, and it can happen like that. You get triggered, boom. And so, in your world, Natalie, as we're talking about health and wellness and making better lifestyle choices, I can imagine so many of us, and I was one of them because I've worked with you and I know the magic of your program. You feel a bad feeling and you're like, or you like have an action, you eat the cookies, you eat the cookies. And oh my gosh, I don't want to feel bad for eating this feeling. I don't want this feeling. I shouldn't have eaten those cookies. I'm so, what's wrong with me for going down that route? Oh, I'm such a bad person for eating these cookies. I mean, you can see how quickly we can spiral. And then when we're in that space of I'm bad, you're separated from yourself, you're separated from your heart, you don't have access to those really high functioning feelings of connection and love. And so it's you just can kind of start cycling in that space.
And I'm imagine you have techniques that can help pull us out of that space.
Yes, I do.
tell me those. How do we pull ourselves out when we've like done the things and are having those thoughts and we're like,
yeah, and sometimes it's really hard to interrupt those thoughts in the moment. We all have programming that happens in our brain. And I often say neurons that fire together wire together. So it's really common. You have a thought, and over the years, the reaction is the same. And so you just kind of get this channel in your brain that gets like hardwired. And so part of what I work with people on and what these self-compassion practices do is give you more access and diversity to other ways of thinking so that you're expanding your neural network and allowing for more options. So it might not mean that you just completely get rid of that wiring. That might be with you all your life and it's just part of living, but you do have more expanded thoughts. So things like gratitude, like you talk about, things like I do the work of Byron Katie a lot, which is helping to find turnarounds. But in the mindful self-compassion world, I really feel like there's three components that are really foundational and fundamental to understanding self-compassion. So I'll just share my screen real quick, and then because this might be helpful for folks, if I can figure out how to do that.
perfect.
Hold on. There it is. Okay, you might not be seeing this in.
Yeah, I see 3 elements of self-compassion.
Yay. So self-compassion really, and when we're talking about this, again, this is coming from Kristen Neff and Christopher Germer and the way that they really look at self-compassion. So there's a component of self-kindness, connection to common humanity, and mindfulness. So self-kindness is really having that loving presence with yourself, to be as caring towards ourselves as we are to others. How often do we have conversations in our head about ourselves with ourselves that we would never, ever, ever have with another person? Like, oh my God, I would never say the things in my head to somebody I love or to anyone, even somebody I don't love. Yet we allow that to happen within our own brains. And so this is part of self-compassion, is really cultivating that ability to find that loving kindness with yourself. Another part of this is connection to common humanity. We are all connected. We are all flawed human beings.
Amen.
And we are all works in progress, right?
Amen.
Everyone fails, everyone makes mistakes, everyone has experiences that create hardships in their lives. A lot of the times when we're in that shame spiral of I shouldn't be feeling this feeling to boom, I'm bad, it creates this separation. I'm the only one. I'm the only one in this world who has ever experienced this. And so when you create that connection and understanding to common humanity, from I'm all alone to I imagine there's other moms out in this world who are also experiencing challenge right in this moment. You feel like you're not alone. And you allow yourself to recognize, again, you're all humans. We are all flawed works in progress. And it is okay to be in that space of humanness, because striving for perfection is not possible because we are human. So the common humanity. And then the third is mindful presence. So really being able to notice, and without attachment, as your thoughts come in, how do I attach to them or not attach to them? How do I cultivate in my life more ability to have a thought pop up and go, oh, that's interesting. I wonder where that came from. And then just let it flow through. When I'm practicing in mindfulness, I think about thoughts like the clouds in the sky, and they just come and go. And if we don't put meaning to those thoughts or even meaning to those emotions, they're just a bunch of clouds and they kind of come and go. It's really when we start saying, oh, that's a black cloud, and that's going to cause rain, and it's going to create a problem, and blah, 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 blah. And we create a whole story around the clouds that they're really creating problems for us. So mindfulness is having that sense of presence with yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your beliefs. So to me, those are the three components of mindful self-compassion that make up kind of a framework of practice that we can use. I can't remember what my next slide is. Oh, so here's a journaling exercise, and we don't have to do this right now, but this is a way to start to understand what is that inner dialogue within your mind, like what is really going on. So and I call this a 4x4 journaling exercise. I just kind of like the format of different ways of looking at a similar idea through journaling. And you can do pictures, you can do bullet points. This doesn't have to be super in depth, but what do I say to a friend to comfort them, to motivate them, to encourage them when they're having a hard time? How do I truly talk to others? And then the second part, if I'm really being honest with myself, when I think about a time I was struggling, how did I respond? What did I say to myself? What tone was I using? So it gives you that chance to see the contrast of how you are showing up for others and then how you're showing up for yourself. When I am in that tone of struggle, how do I treat myself and those around me when I'm in that space of challenging thoughts? Like, what behaviors do I have? Do I get snappy? Do I get judgmental? Do I get defensive? Am I able to stay open-hearted? Am I able to stay curious? How do I treat others? Mine was, do I go to the pantry and eat chips? Do I, what happens in my life, in the physical and the emotional and this, when I'm really in this space of self-criticism? And then here's a space, the fourth question is really, what are the differences between how I treat a friend and how I treat myself? And really being able to sink into what that difference is, and seeing that contrast. So I'll just pause there for a minute. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we are so much harder on ourselves than we would, right? And my burning question is, like, you kind of alluded to it with like the chip example, is where do we draw the line on self-compassion and truly doing what we know we need to do to take care of ourselves? Because it can go both ways, right? So I seem like it can almost be like a double-edged sword, where if we're like being all like nicey, well, the compassionate thing for myself would be right now would be to have some chocolate chip cookies because I'm feeling and experiencing this. So what's the line and what's the dichotomy between like what true self-compassion is and then actually like caring for ourselves in the
Right.
best way possible? And I know that's the undertone that you've got in there, but that's also not necessarily easy.
Yeah, it's not easy, and it's a practice, right? This is like humaning. This is the epitome of humaning. To me, as I have gone through this experience myself and really been looking at food in this context, I mean, just to use that example, because I know a lot of people here really care about that. One of the things that I ask myself is, am I accessing this because there's a feeling I don't want to feel? Like, what am I avoiding? And is this thing that I am consuming truly going to give me what I need? Is it coming out of a place of avoidance and resistance and fear? Or is this truly a loving, kind thing for my body? So, like, to me, the difference, like using the cookie example, like, um, I'm upset, I'm in a spiral, I'm trying to stop myself from feeling a feeling. So I access the cookie. And I am using the cookie as a way to like down regulate that feeling. But feelings need to be heard, seen, expressed in a healthy way and released. And so the more often for me that I kind of suppress those feelings, they just sort of build under the surface. And then we get major eruption. The other cookie example, the other day, my 8-year-old daughter really wanted to make cookies and she really wanted to do it on her own. And she was so excited about it. And so I kind of supervised, but really it was led by her. And it was this moment of incredible connection. And in the end, even though I can't really do dairy very well and sugar and all the things that are in a cookie, I had a cookie because it felt loving and it felt like a loving thing to do with my body. And so those are, and that's self-compassion because that's like, this is what I desire. This is connection. The other one is disconnection from myself. So, but I think that it's just an experiment. You have to just practice and see and be curious. Like, I did this behavior. How do I feel now? Does that feel like it's a loving, connected thing? Maybe, or maybe not. And then if it's not, then you just start to think about making other choices the next time around. And part of it is non-judgmental. Like, this is all human experiment. So we're going to just try to see how we can navigate through this cycle.
Yeah, and I think a big thing, and I know you work a lot with people, like bringing people together and having that connection space. And the beautiful thing is the more you do healing work yourself is when you connect with other people who have had those experiences, as soon as you're in that environment, you're like, oh, you see that healing's possible, like, and whatever that means for you. And again, we've all got stuff and we're all working on stuff. And as soon as you're in a space, and there's definitely amplified power of being like in the physical space of somebody else who's transcended that, who's gone through that, who's walked that walk and has gone through the steps and done the work, because then they can connect and be like, oh, okay, this is possible for me too. So what's the, because I know you just talked to me a little bit about some of your how you physically come together with women, because again, we've so like Zoom's great, right? Like,
yeah,
if it wasn't for Zoom, like you and I wouldn't be talking right now,
right?
We wouldn't have like met each other months ago. So it's great, but what are the different levels that happen when we connect in person?
Well, to me, in person, on Zoom, like in community, creation of community, it is really getting to that component of common humanity and that feeling of like, oh, I'm not alone in this journey. And in seeing other people's and sharing openly and authentically and vulnerably, we can see ourselves in other people's journeys. Every time I do coach people in the work or whatever, I say thank you, because your work is my work. I see myself in you and you see yourself in me. We are all just kind of mirrors for each other to help each other grow. And so that's the power of coming together and sharing in these spaces, of being able to see, learn, grow, and we're all at different points on a spectrum, and no one has arrived. Like, I am not an enlightened master sitting on the mountaintop. I teach what I need to learn. And so this is always about me coming back to myself and my own practice, and being true to myself.
So we've talked a bit about emotions. So how can we understand and support our big emotions? And again, I'll share is like, so like for myself, the awareness is like, I was very shut off from like my emotions. I was, again, we all have a story, right? But it's just like, I wasn't even comfortable. I was like so disconnected from even feeling those feelings. And when they would start to like crack through, it's just like, whoa, like what is that? So how do, is it the space? Is it the permission? Is it the environment? Like what is it when someone who, because I'm not the only one who's gone through life like being very closed off from feeling the emotions and expressing them. So like, where do we start?
Yeah, emotions are messy, right? And so many of us as children are told to, like, especially girls, don't disrupt the flow, go be a good girl, And so in doing that, that messaging becomes, don't have emotions that are going to make other people uncomfortable, or that are gonna like create any sort of like radiate or whatever out into the world. And for so many of us, that then, I mean, it seems like there's two ways it happens. You either completely shut it off and tamp it down so that it's just like, what do you mean? I don't have emotions. Or like me, you just have really big emotions and they just,
That's interesting. So I was 100% the shut her down. Nothing's
yeah.
happening here. You don't need to know. Carry on.
Yeah. And for me though, I was always performing as a child, and there was this deep emotional world within me that was just boiling, and it would then take over everything that I was doing. I was driven by my emotions instead of, being someplace. So really, like, to me, you want to be someplace in that middle ground, right? You want to be able to understand, acknowledge, see, hear, feel, and release, so that you are free, you're emotionally free, to express yourself and to help yourself move through things, but they're not like ruling the world. So to me, part of that emotional intelligence is just starting to notice, like, oh, I'm triggered. What's coming up inside of me, like having the permission to explore, be curious, and kind of look at like, okay, well, I might not totally know the name for the feeling that I'm having, but I do know that I am doing these different things. I am yelling at my kids, or I'm really irritated. There's things underneath that are boiling that if you can get curious, you can go down. And so maybe what we can do is a quick self-compassion break. And I can teach you a little method that I use, and or it's from Kristen Neff. This is not my own, but I found it very helpful. And this can be done in like as a meditation, eyes closed, and thinking about that, or it can be done just in a moment when I use this all the time in my work. I work, in the environmental field, lots of conflict, lots of people who have very different perspectives. And sometimes I can get a little pissed off. And when I feel myself getting into that space of anger or resentment or frustration or overwhelm, I can access this in the moment in a meeting and kind of help me come back to myself and come back to my heart, so that I can truly actually listen to what is underneath what these other people are expressing. And so that's, that's a really important part of it. So this is called the self-compassion break. And it is, there's a couple of things to it. One is in self-compassion, soothing touch is a really important part of what they have discovered. So we like touch as humans.
Oxytocin. Let's have some oxytocin.
Exactly. And we don't have to always look to others to give us that. We can give it to ourselves. So for some people, they find like, giving themselves a hug or hands on the face, or, every time I'm talking, you probably see me do this, hands on the heart, or, patting your leg or holding your hands, whatever it is that feels good to you, just kind of know that this is a part of the self-compassion break. The other thing is, I just want to note though about the touch, I resisted soothing touch. I hated it at first when I learned it. It took me a year of trying to, what's going on? Why do I not like this? So if you feel resistance to any of this, that's normal.
Mhm.
It's okay. And just know that's part of the process. So okay, so we're gonna just start, and if you like Natalie, you can close your eyes, or you can do it with your eyes open. And if you're watching on Facebook, as long as you're not driving or operating heavy machinery, you can do that, or just listen along. So let's start by thinking of a situation in our lives that's causing some stress. So it could be a health problem, could be a relationship or a work, something you're struggling with. And as you scan your life for that situation, choose something in the mild to moderate range. It's sort of nice to practice with something that's not red hot fire, but is maybe a little smoldery. So just visualize that situation clearly in your mind. What's the setting? Where are you? Who's saying what to whom? What's happening? What's going on? Maybe you can start to, as you bring this to mind, you can feel it in your body. Maybe you feel it in your heart or your throat, tension in some area of your body. Just really connect and just take a moment to scan. Where is this stress showing up in my body? So as you touch into that sensation and this visualization of this stressful moment, try saying to yourself, wow, this is a moment of suffering. And there might be another word that works better for you, like ouch, or oof, this hurts. I mean, this is really stressful. So by bringing those words in, you're really accessing that component of mindfulness. You're acknowledging the feeling underneath the situation. Now, try saying to yourself, just try it on. Suffering is a part of life. So this is our connection to each other, to the humanness, to common humanity. And you might also experiment with, I'm not alone. Everyone experiences something like this, just like me. Or this is how it feels when people struggle. You might even try accessing or acknowledging that in this moment of struggle, it is highly likely there are other people right in this very moment having the exact same thought or feeling. So now that you've mindfully acknowledged and you've connected to others and common humanity, offer yourself that soothing touch that maybe you discovered. Maybe it's hands on your heart, holding your face, belly, whatever feels really good, soothing. And then try saying to yourself, may I be kind to myself. Or may I give myself just what I need. Other words that are really helpful for me, maybe they are for you. May I love and accept myself just as I am. May I forgive myself for my imperfections. May I be strong. May I be patient. May I find peace in my life. Maybe like, may I accept myself as I am feels too far. So maybe you can try it. May I begin to accept myself. May I be open to accepting myself just as I am. And in this, as you practice, you can find more and more words that really work for you. And if you really struggle with these words, maybe just imagine speaking to a dear friend who just shared about the situation. What simple message would you deliver? Oh, sweetheart, that sounds hard. May you find the love in yourself the way I see it in you. What heart-to-heart message would you have? Maybe you can see if you can deliver yourself that same message. And so as you find those messages and find that heart space for yourself, just know that the more we practice, the more we come back to ourselves and acknowledge our moments of suffering and give to ourselves what we need, the more we will be able to feel freedom and ease, joy, and gratitude in our lives. So with that you can feel free to open your eyes. And that's the simplicity of a self-compassion break.
That was a beautiful experience. And it was kind of a question I had earlier. And basically, if anyone has a moment, if they don't have a moment right now, like come back to this recording and take a few minutes to do that, is because first it felt uncomfortable when I was like examining the situation. But then that's part of the process of like examining and witnessing. And then that's a way for like the emotion to not get stuck and the emotion to flow, which that's a whole nother conversation of how that like creates dis-ease in our body on all our emotional and physical fields. So, but knowing that, it was just like, it helps. Like, I know what's happening in that process. Just like, man, this is like uncomfortable, like looking at it. Oh, I'm feeling all the feelings. And then as we did like the self-touch and we shifted to compassion and self-love, I could feel that flowing and going. And then again, when we get to self-love and gratitude, it's like, oh, okay, I know that is not stuck with me. So thank you. That I needed that. I really appreciated that. I needed that today.
Hey, that's great. Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I will do that multiple times a day, just like always, oh gosh, my daughter's melting down. And sometimes I just cue myself. I go, oh, hand on the heart. Oof, this is a hard moment. And this is part of humaning. Yeah, I'm so glad it was helpful.
A whole lot of grace, a whole lot of self-compassion, and a whole lot of grace.
Yes.
That was a wonderful practice. And yeah, it's like, whether it's this or something similar, that once you've done it several times, listening to the recording, have Morgan guide you through it, then like you can in an instant, because you've done it, like, okay, Morgan knows it, so she can center herself in just a moment, and doesn't have to be like, again, you're sitting in a meeting and just like eyes closed and like hand on your heart, people are like, what's going on? But you can do it in a way that centers yourself.
Yeah,
So
my
you show
medium
up.
trigger is usually a hand to the leg, and I kind of rub my leg, and that's the cue. Oh, this is a moment of challenge for you. And so yeah, you kind of learn how to cue yourself in different ways in different situations.
And then you can keep showing up, process, acknowledge what's there in the humanist system, not ignoring it.
Yeah,
And then we can continue to show up how we really want to powerfully. I love that.
yeah, yeah. So I know we're kind of out of time. I wanted to share a couple things. First off, what we were practicing today, oops, this is, I know it's not in slideshow. Here we go. We'll do it bigger. Was really the side of tender self-compassion, of accepting ourselves to alleviate that suffering. There's another component that I think is so important for us to talk about, not today, but just to acknowledge that there is also fierce self-compassion. So this is not a practice of just becoming wallflowers and just allowing people to stomp on us. But it is that inner healing and the outer change, the yin and the yang. It's the tender and the fierce coming together to create a caring force to yourself. So it's the mama bear loving, and it's also the mama bear protecting. And when you are working through both of those, that's, there's so much power in that, so that you are fiercely showing up and saying no to and protecting your boundaries, and also allowing yes to be an intentional part of your life. So I wanted to share, this is a graphic from Kristen Neff, but I think that it's also a really important thing to share. And I actually, ways to work with me, just in case people are like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I do have free resources, gratitude challenges. I call it a gratitude power up ebook. So if you're curious, you want to explore, you want to kind of see what's happening, that's there. I have opportunities where you kind of dip your toe into some of this work. I have an ebook which includes monthly group coaching calls. So that's a really great place, and that's available on my website. I also do these other things which are more wading in and getting fully immersed in the water, which is a big life vision mapping sessions where we work through where you want to go and how you want to be, or really one-on-one coaching. So I just share that with you. But coming up, there's a link to the fall ebook. Maybe we can put it in a chat somewhere. And then I do have a free meetup that will be exploring fierce self-compassion on October 19th, 4:30 to 6 Pacific. So I know for those in the East Coast, it's a little of a later evening thing, but it's a Thursday evening. And like we were talking about, sometimes having that community of others who can come together and talk and share experience and practice together, it can be really, really powerful. So that's just an Eventbrite. It's a free meetup, and anybody is welcome to attend if you have some interest in that.
I mean, is that online meetup?
Yes, that's an online meetup. So
nice.
That's just on Zoom. We'll meet there. I know many of us are kind of getting tired of that, but it's also a great way to meet, because we're all spread out across.
I'm a little far just to pop in for 4:30.
I want everybody to come onto the Pacific Northwest and let's go hiking and do that, but we'll hold that for later.
That's our vision. We'll draw that one out on the vision mapping over there. So yeah, I would definitely encourage everyone to plug into Morgan's gratitude challenge, because I'm all about the gratitude, and it's usually like a number one action item for any programs or smaller challenges that I work with. So I would definitely look into Morgan's gratitude challenge. I highly recommend that.
Yeah, and it's so amazing how something as simple as gratitude can completely rewire your brain. And so there's two ways to access that. One is a 14-day email challenge. So you get one email a day, and it will be a new practice for you, and you'll learn about it and have different ways of experimenting with gratitude. And then the power up is really kind of self-paced. You just get the ebook, and you can just some journal prompts and some things to explore. So yeah, they
It's
both are great books.
fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you sharing. I'm very grateful that you're sharing that with our community and sharing your gifts far and wide, and that we were able to connect and have this conversation together. And Morgan is really so passionate about what she does, and I know everyone who's listened to this has got something out of it. And
Yeah.
I know what's your final wish for everyone today?
Oh gosh, my wish for everyone is that we can all feel, what's the word I'm looking for? Feel that sense of presence with ourselves and take the time to really connect with our hearts and find an opening that allows us to truly begin this process of loving and accepting ourselves. So even if it's just a tiny moment, that moment is something that you cherish and find value and power in.
That's beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Morgan. Thank you for sharing your wonderful gifts and light with our community. And yeah, everyone, we'll drop those links into the Facebook group after we're done, so that people have easy access to that. And
Yay.
maybe we'll see you on the meetup.
Yes, I would love anybody come on, and if anybody has any questions, you can follow me on Instagram. That's like where I tend to be most active, at Morgan Ruff Uplift. And it's rough like a dog bark. Well, you can see it in my title there, not like the texture. And feel free to DM me there or connect with me through the website. All of that is something that is available to
All
you.
right. That's amazing. Well, thank you, Morgan. And hope everyone has a day full of self-compassion, even if it starts with just that moment.
Yes.
It's a beautiful way to make an impact on our day.
Yes.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.